On Press Perspective today, we touch upon Korea's annual make or break college entrance test that took place this week and the Grammy nomination history for K-pop. Do stay with us. Hello and welcome. You're watching Press Perspective for this Friday, November 14th, here in Seoul. I'm Min Sunhee. Now today we tell you why, for 25 minutes back on Thursday afternoon, South Korea literally fell silent. To answer this question and many more, I have Camille Ruiz with French International News, Radio News Network, that is, RFI, here in the studio. Camille, it's lovely to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
I also have writer Colin Marshall with the pundit's take on today's topics. Colin, as always, it's great to have you here.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Camille, Suneung took place last Thursday, and this annual college entrance examination continues to make international headlines. Perhaps we can start with some of the reasons behind the foreign media interest in this annual South Korean examination.
Yeah, so I think in every country people are aware of the harsh time students have to go through at that time of the year at such a young age, barely adults. But in Korea, this annual college entrance test is indeed special. That is why it's making international headlines. South Korean people still talk about that test as a life-changing test, a test that determines your life. So there is a lot of social pressure around this competition, because it is a competition. In most of the countries in the world, after high school, this test is supposed to evaluate students' knowledge and capacities, but in Korea it's slightly different. You have to have a better score than everyone if you want to enter the best universities. And since they are children, for some of them like 2 years old, 3 years old, they are raised to enter the best university because it's a synonym of social success to them, but in reality to their parents too. And so everything is down to make them concentrate as much as possible on the D-Day. Can you imagine, like, airplanes do not fly at certain hours. It's very unusual for other countries, other cultures. Policemen and policewomen are called in to bring late students to the site. To the exam, it stops military training. Parents are waiting all day long in this chilly autumn to support their children. Sometimes they are even praying in front of the school. So yeah, it's a very big deal, and that's why it's making international headlines.
Right, it's a marathon test. It lasts roughly between 8 to 9 hours, depending on the subjects you sign up for. Colin, test takers nationwide also are greeted by cheering squads of underclassmen carrying signs and banging on pots and pans. Are these annual scenes of moral support unique to South Korea?
It's quite a sight, and as I recall 25 or so years ago when I took the SAT, the American equivalent of the Suneung, nobody was cheering for me. When I left the test center, I think nobody was there at all. I was just glad it was done. But it shows you one facet of how much weight the Suneung is given in Korean society. And in the Korean media, there are always these articles about just the sort of hullabaloo around it. And in the Western media, you sort of see the same story every year about how the one test that determines the life of every South Korean. Well, that's a bit of an exaggeration, not entirely, but it gets at something real, which is that this is a society in large part organized through a university system, and admission to that system is granted for many, not everyone, by this test, the Suneung. And it would be a stretch to say that Koreans like the Suneung, but I think it is trusted as an objective measure of student ability, and it is fair in the sense that, in theory, without connections, without wealth, a student can still take the Suneung, perform well, and get admission to one of the so-called sky schools, Seoul National University, Korea University, Yonsei University, which are considered the sort of producers of the elite in South Korea. So it's a bit of a political third rail, changing it or not changing it. What do we do with it? People find that the system stresses students a lot. And this is part of what we see in these celebrations. The underclassmen go and cheer on the upperclassmen, but they themselves are quoted in these articles saying, like, you know, I'm more scared than they are. I know I have to face this next year. But some students, they say, you know, I feel good. We all do this. We all have to do it. It's a rite of passage. And in a way, it's a step toward adulthood, maybe one of the major steps, more so than university itself in many cases. But I do think one thing that the Korean media sometimes, but also especially the Western media, the foreign media, fail to underscore is that not everyone takes it. Even among university students, not everyone takes it. You can do early admission. You can bypass the Suneung, this test that supposedly dominates Korean society and the consciousness of students. And it's getting to be more popular. In fact, Seoul National University, the one school everybody wants to get in, let's face it, I believe 70% of entrants were sushi, early admission, a way to, if not avoid entirely, to minimize the importance of the Suneung. So you can see the will to escape the Suneung, but still it's I think, a major part of Korean society and a pretty good lens through which to view Korean society as well.
Right. And speaking about viewing the Korean society, some foreign media claim that academic success here in South Korea is the most important. What have been some of your observations here?
I think it's true in many senses, and one way I can put it is, when I put out a book last year, I got invited to some book clubs, and I was talking to one, and someone there asked me, you know, in the US, do people consider studying a way to wealth? And I think about it, you know, they really don't. It's two different things. Being good at school and getting rich, they're not closely associated in the US, not so much anymore. I mean, you think of the rich Americans who are very well looked upon by Koreans like Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates. They're college dropouts, they're Harvard dropouts, but college dropouts nonetheless. The idea of school, the idea of academics and academic skill being the route to wealth is more deeply entrenched here, I think, than it is in certainly American society and many other. If you think of certain European countries, for example, there, Germany, say, is bigger on diverting students who are more skilled in one thing onto that track, say vocational training, for example. Here, the bottleneck is all in the university. One stat that always sort of strikes me is that how many people go to college in Korea and how many people complete college, much, much higher than the US. And in the US, I would say the rate is already too high. But if there's something to criticize about the whole Suneung system, the Suneung and Sky School system, I would say it's more than anything that bottleneck, the bottleneck at getting into university, where I feel that perhaps it would be maybe a little healthier to allow more diversification of paths early on. But much easier said than done. And as I say, touching the Suneung politically is not a viable proposition right now. But it has been revised many times. This is not the last version of it. I think we'll see more changes coming on, but who knows when.
Right, and in the meantime, Camille, for the sake of comparison, could you tell us a bit about the atmosphere at French schools on the day of Le Bac, which is probably the French equivalent of Suneung?
Right, sure, it's very different. In France, the baccalaureate is important, of course, but not to the point that airplanes do not fly or police agents are involved. It would be a mess, I think, honestly, but it's held in summer. Parents are not waiting outside. They'll probably go to work like every other day. Maybe on the day of the result, they will be waiting for their child to share joy or sadness. What is important is to pass, not to have the best score. Of course, it depends on the family background, the school and the student's ambition, but yeah. So again, the baccalaureate is very different because it's held on multiple days. The test is divided into distinct parts, so math, science, philosophy, French literature, and students have also oral tests, listening and speaking tests for foreign language exams, for instance, one by one in front of a professor. They also have to write essays. So the atmosphere is very different. We do not have some special things that create a culture of bac, except for 100 days before the first test. At that time of the year, it's like a countdown. And students have funny costumes. They bring eggs and flour to the high school and have fun throwing both at the faces of each other. We call it perçant. Yeah, maybe it's because I am a boring adult now, but honestly, if we could find another way to celebrate than food waste to celebrate 100 days before baccalaureate, it would be great.
Right. Is the baccalaureate available just once a year, or can you take it many times, like is the case with the SAT?
It's a great question. I think it depends on students. If students face some problem the day at the baccalaureate, they probably can retake it.
And the test is taken over a couple of days, I'm assuming, like a period of a couple of weeks, like the O-levels or the A-levels that I took when I was back in England.
Oh, right.
Right, okay. So it's not like a one-day test like Suneung?
No.
Right, because Suneung is a one-day test over a span of 8-9 hours.
That is probably why the atmosphere is different.
It's electric.
It's long. So,
it is. It's quite exhausting.
I mean, it's long in one day for Korean, but it's also long for French people on multiple days. So obviously the atmosphere is different.
Right, for sure. Meanwhile, Camille, on a rather sobering note, a series of AI-based cheating scandals at 3 of Korea's top universities are raising quite a bit of concern here on the local front. And this reality with regard to AI-based cheating goes beyond national borders. University professors in America had actually been sounding the alarm for quite a while. What have you been hearing, and what can you tell us about the situation, perhaps also in Europe?
Recently around 20 students from a French university in Strasbourg who had cheated during a remote exam using the artificial intelligence chatbot that we all know, ChatGPT, had to retake it in person. And also some medical students in Belgium who did the same thing have been expelled. So ChatGPT and other artificial intelligence systems are now banned from school and universities around the world, including the French prestigious political science school Sciences Po Paris, because it is causing concern within the educational community, which fears that it would be used as a tool for cheating or plagiarism by students during exams. First of all, it's illegal. Second of all, it's obviously not fair to students who do not cheat. And also, cheating using artificial intelligence can compromise students' ability to, think for themselves and acquire crucial knowledge. Again, I talked earlier about medical students. It's serious because they will eventually be treating patients in the future. So this could ultimately affect people's health. Some teachers are calling for a return to traditional exam with paper and pencil, but it seems that many governments are overwhelmed by the speed of this new digital tool.
Right. The pace of the advancements in AI technology appears to be outpacing the presence of legal guidelines or guardrails, should I say. Colin, let's move on to something lighter. On the entertainment front, one US media says K-pop, and I'm quoting, is finally getting its major category nominations at the 2026 Grammy Awards. What are the broader implications of this particular reality, do you think?
That finally in the headline is very telling, or I don't know if it was the headline or not, but the finally is telling, because this was part of the narrative around K-pop for the past few years. I think through the 2020s, this idea that K-pop is being snubbed at the Grammys. Nothing was getting nominated. No Korean singer, no Korean girl group, boy band was getting nominated, whereas all these non-Korean, all these Western pop stars, not just American, but a variety of clearly not K-pop pop stars were being nominated and winning, despite the fact that K-pop was getting so big across the whole world and in the US as well. And this was underscored by BTS breaking the Billboard charts in the US early in the decade and then later topping the Billboard charts, which tells you, I think, a lot about how K-pop can mobilize its fans, especially BTS's fans. But now, yes, there's this, I think, the Grammys have become more important to K-pop fans the world over than they are to everyone else. I mean, it's been covered that the Grammys have been sort of losing public interest over the years. The ceremony itself is less and less tuned into in the US year on year, but still this idea that it is a legitimization, or will be, for K-pop, much like the Academy Award won by Bong Joon-ho's Parasite a few years ago. This is a sense that there is a sense this is something Korea needs to win. I don't just say K-pop, I don't just say Korean artist. Korea itself needs to win. I mean, the Nobel Prize too was one of these, with Hangang winning last year around this time, in fact. So yes, that's whether or not a K-pop act wins. This is a step forward in that narrative. There are now multiple Korea K-pop or K-pop related projects that have been nominated. And one that I will mention, just one, which strikes me as emblematic of what's going on there, is a girl group called Cat's Eye, which is not necessarily a Korean group, but a group of girls with one Korean member and the rest are non-Korean from a variety of different countries, a real rainbow coalition of pop music. Stylistically, it is, you could say it's K-pop. That's another debate, but I mean, this is part of a trend. I've long sort of been amused by this. For example, there's an Argentine girl group called Chaos, K4OS, Chaos in Spanish. They sing in Spanish. None of them are of Korean heritage at all, but you watch their videos, you think, this is K-pop. Like in every meaningful respect, other than the language, it's K-pop. But I think there, again, the internationalism is interesting, but I'll leave that to Camille to discuss, I think.
Right, and staying with that then, Camille, what more can you add about the prospects of K-pop at the 2026 Grammy Awards?
I think that K-pop already proved that they can compete with any songs sung by American stars. But I remember some comments about K-pop K-pop fans, that were accusing churches to be unfair or even racist because not even once K-pop stars won a Grammy Award. One might indeed wonder because BTS was first nominated about 5 years ago or something. 5 years without a single K-pop star, without a single award for K-pop is quite surprising, but this year there are more and more nominations. Of course, Rosé and Bruno Mars with Apathy, Golden from the fictive K-pop girl band Hendrix in K-pop Demon Enters. I think that K-pop is really bringing more diversity in terms of musicality and language, obviously. At least I hope, because K-pop is more and more absorbed by the English language. I personally and it's very subjective, think that it's unfortunate. To me, one of the beauty of K-pop is Korean language, 한국어. But yeah, it's another debate. And even in France, famous French artists are starting to publicly promote and enjoy K-pop, like the French rapper Orelsan, who released the song with the girl band 50/50, and David Guetta, who created a single with Stray Kids. But anyway, I can't wait to see if this year's Grammy finally recognizes the value of K-pop.
Right, we'll keep our fingers crossed for that. Colin, the German media recently touched upon the growing popularity of Seoul as a travel destination among both the young and the old in Germany. What do you believe are the perhaps appealing aspects of South Korea among travelers, depending on where they come from?
It can vary based on their country of origin. And I always like talking to people who have just come for the first time to Korea, because I've been here 10 years and certain things I don't see as clearly as I used to because I've got used to them. And the rest of the world has changed too in that time. But Germans come here, you'd think maybe the scale of the country, and you know, the train system is not entirely different from the one they have there. And you can see why there'd be a nice mixture of familiarity and difference for someone from a European country like Germany, or indeed France in some cases. When I meet Americans, fellow Americans who come here, they have a whole different set of things they say they like, but also it's often in terms of, oh, we could never have this in America. This wouldn't be possible in the US, you know, unmanned stores or subway station bathrooms. That's a favorite subject of mine to bring up. But I think, yes, oftentimes it's about what the country you come from lacks in some cases, that Korea has developed rapidly over the course of the past sort of 50, 60 years. For example, well, this is something more abstract, but an American friend of mine who is a big sort of travel writer and photographer, you could say, he comes to Korea every few months whenever he's going into Asia. He stops in Korea deliberately. He loves Seoul. He doesn't speak a word of Korean, but he gets around and he enjoys it. And I was talking to him last time he was here about what he likes about Seoul specifically, and he was saying it's a relaxing place for him. He finds it to be a relaxing city and indeed country to be in, Korea. And I was thinking, that's funny, I don't think a Korean would necessarily say that Korea is a relaxing place, especially a Korean about to take the Suneung, as we talked about earlier. But he said, yeah, it's compared to China or even Japan in many ways, or other parts of Asia, it's a comfortable place on many levels. Public safety is one of them. And just the ambience of things to him was, he just found it a place where he could spend time easily, and it was nice to always come back to. So I think one's attitude towards Korea, partially it's about this country, partially it's about where you came from, and no longer is it about 50, 60 years ago, there were a lot more complaints about Korea. It was a hardship posting. Now it's the other way around. Now it's people talk about what's better here than, even if it is a country like the US or Germany or even Japan. People see things they would like to change back home when they come here.
Right, and as South Korea looks to boost tourism here, there are some countries seeking to fight over tourism. Camille, what can you tell us about some of the initiatives that have been adopted?
Yeah, for some countries and places, tourism has a positive effects on the economy, of course, on the soft power of the country. But for others, there are more negative effects than positive ones. For example, in Spain, in territories like Barcelona, Malaga, and the Canary Islands, for instance, there were protests against over-tourism. Residents are complaining about infrastructure congestions, the disappearance of traditional shops turning into tourism shops, and also and above all the surge in rents, with many property owners turning to tourist rentals, which are much more profitable. Several regions and municipalities have announced measures in recent months. For instance, they have promised to not renew the licenses for some 10,000 tourist apartments, which will expire in November 2028. And there is some other examples. For instance, in Italy, there is this famous archaeological site of Pompeii near Naples, where a volcano, Mount Vesuvius, erupted in 1979. So the city is very well preserved with the ash deposit, and the site has imposed a maximum number of visits, 20,000 visits per day. Why? To protect this heritage. And so the crowd is not going to exceed the limits in this legendary open-air venue. So there is other examples, but I'll just add that as a tourist, it is important to find out about the place you want to visit, and of course to respect the measure in place to preserve the sites and to be considerate towards the locals.
Right, for sure, to be considerate to the locals and of course to respect the heritage there, for sure. All right, Camille, I'm afraid that's all the time we have. Thank you so much for your time and your thoughts.
Thank you.
Colin, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Sunhee.
Right, on that note, we had this edition of Press Perspective. As always, thank you for watching. Have a great weekend. See you next Monday.